Hello there.
Wow.
And welcome to the Untitled Film Podcast with Callum and Johnny. I'm Johnny.
I'm Callum. That was quite an impactful one.
Wow.
That woke me right up.
Feel like you needed it.
Yeah,
For this
I had a nap earlier
8:50
today.
PM
Yeah,
on a Sunday.
It's a bit groggy, a bit foggy-headed today, and that was like, what's going on? Where am I?
That's interesting, actually. So was I, and so was someone else I know. I feel like it's the hay fever.
I think it might be. I get bad allergies.
I think it's been bad the last few days.
It's been really bad to me.
I've taken quite a few, obviously, hay fever tablets.
Me too.
So if we sound groggy tonight, that is why, evidently.
Hopefully that woke us up, though.
Yeah.
Be peppy now.
I did have a coffee at about 6:30 PM, which for me is
Wild,
quite
man.
Wild. I mean, it's not wild for you.
No,
You'll drink coffee at 3 a.m.
I will, but I'm not as bad as my brother, who will be drinking coffee probably from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed, and it won't affect his sleep at all.
So I'm not someone who's like, I can go to sleep with caffeine, but if I haven't had like a very tiring day and I have a late coffee, I'll be lying in bed at midnight and I'll be like, why can't I sleep tonight? Oh yeah, I had a coffee at like 6 p.m.
I wonder why.
But if I'm tired, it doesn't make much difference.
I see.
But some people, like people that go out for a nice big dinner and have a couple of glasses of wine, and then, would you like coffee with your dessert at 9 p.m? I'm like, that is madness to me.
I enjoy that.
Wow.
I really go in for that.
Anyway, this isn't comedians and cars getting coffee.
No, we are drifting very far from the topic here.
Film podcast, so we will swerve back round into the correct lane. And yeah, we do sometimes interact with people, though, out in the real world.
We do, indeed.
And maybe next time you pour yourself a cup of coffee, you could go onto our socials and interact with us. And what are those socials, Callum?
That will be Untitled Film Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And you can also catch up with the show on YouTube if you're that way inclined. We asked a question this week in honor of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, making everybody sob their eyes out. That's the big discourse about the film. I asked, what film gets you looking like this? And I used a bunch of pictures of very bad acting crying.
Including Tobey Maguire.
Twice. So I included Tobey Maguire, James Van Der Beek, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Claire Danes, and then Tobey Maguire again. Lucky him. And we did get a response from our editor, our producer, Rob Hardstone, and he said the final act of Paddleton, which I actually can't say I've seen, but I had to look it up.
I haven't either.
But it's got an interesting cast. I suspect the reason why he watched it, Mark Maron plays a fairly prominent role, it looks like. He's in the main cast. For what could have easily been a miserable trauma dump of a movie, Paddleton found a way to keep me engaged enough that the final few scenes tore my heart out. So, Johnny, what films got you looking like Tobey Maguire?
I was trying to think about this. So I don't often cry through sadness in films unless there's an animal involved. If I'm going to cry at a film, it's more out of joy. I'm more like, oh, it's all gone so well for them when I'm sad. That actually makes me kind of like more likely to well up. But I was really struggling to think, like, yeah, there's a lot of films out there like with dogs in, like My Dog Skip or that kind of stuff that has
the whole
me crying.
subgenre of kids movie of dogs in peril.
Yeah, basically any Homeward Bound when the dogs get back at the end and rejoin everyone. So that's quite a big one. I'm trying to think of. There are ones that make me like well up, but as I say, mainly with joy. But I just can't think of any of this. You put me on the spot. How about you, Callum?
Well,
other than Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 did get me, I have to say. But I remember as a teenager, did you ever see Bridge to Terabithia?
Yeah.
I
know you
didn't
really like that.
know anything about that film. And the first two acts are like a fantasy film, a young adult adventure movie. And then something very tragic happens and they play it absolutely straight down the line. They don't play it with any whimsy at all. Whimsy goes out the window as soon as the tragic thing happens. They deal with it quite realistically for that kind of genre of movie. And because you're not expecting it, it really sideswipes you. I remember just... I was hyperventilating by the end. I just was not expecting it. I think had I gone in sort of knowing, had they put in something in Act 1 to sort of suggest it, but the strength in that book and movie is that it wrong foots you. It's a whimsy, and oh, by the way, this thing happened. I'm going to try and not spoil it, but it's a this thing happened.
Yeah.
Like what? But why?
It is quite an impactful moment. I think because I'm just not into that genre as a whole, it didn't really pull me along in the same way, but I can see why it would make someone do that. I've just had another thought as well, actually. documentaries, if they're about the right thing, can make me cry. The most recent one, and not again, I wouldn't quite say ugly crying, but the Anthony Bourdain Roadrunner, which I've seen twice, and both times made me well up at the end.
That is a sad one, considering everything that happened.
Exactly, but no, it's I basically just don't have a soul. So.
I can confirm that.
Anywho, on to the news. I'm going to start this week because I'm going to do my classic old man yells at the sky at streaming services.
I deliberately didn't go for this one because I wanted you to have it. I knew because you'd sent me a text about it, so I knew that you would go for it.
Yeah. So Disney Plus, like, what's it?
HBO Max?
HBO / whatever they are now, giant mega, is it Time Warner, whatever they merged. Disney have decided to do the same thing as that, where what happens is they decide, well, we're paying too many taxes this year. So what we could do with is taking a big loss, I'm doing air quotes here, by having something which we can show has made no money and that we're writing it off. And by writing it off, it will probably never be seen again. So they've gone down a huge list of things on FX, Hulu, Disney Plus, and gone, let's get rid of these things. And it's something in the realms of $1.5 to $1.8 billion worth of content. And there's some quite big things on there. Things like Artemis Fowl, which admittedly was a massive flop, but was fucking expensive.
The Sex Pistols TV show.
Yeah, the Sex Pistols, which I quite liked. And I would be quite, I mean, it's not like you won't be able to legally stream it somewhere, but it's quite sad that they're getting rid of that, which, you know, was an interesting piece of Danny Boyle work, and again, may never ever be seen through official channels again. There was a excellent documentary called Howard, which I haven't actually seen, which I might have to try and watch in the next week, about
Howard Ashman, right?
Yeah, who wrote the original songs for The Little Mermaid, and various other things, and was a bit of an LGBTQ plus icon. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about dumping that, and apparently there's quite a lot of stuff that's kind of pro-LGBTQ, although apparently Disney may have reversed its decision on that one. Apparently the list isn't finalised yet after there's been a bit of a fan uprising. And also people saying, well, The Little Mermaid is coming out in like 2 weeks and you're getting rid of this. Surely this is going to be quite popular.
You could quite easily promote it. I mean, on any bit of Little Mermaid material, you can put it. They always bundle packs together.
Let's have a look. I've got the information about Howard open at the minute, but I just wanted to see...
I know Willow was another one.
Yeah, Willow was another one, which is, again...
That's only just come out.
Yeah, like,
I know it wasn't a hit. It came out, it came and it went. But still, I mean,
in a
like
way
6
for them,
months ago.
In a way for them, though, you know, if they bundle up 40 documentaries that is made from found footage and cost $100,000 to make, it's not that big a tax write-off.
If they need something
like Willow that probably cost $120 million or something ridiculous to make if it wasn't massively big. There's a lot of stuff like the music of Wakanda Forever being taken off, which people are saying again. Is a strange one. Turner and Hooch, which you quite liked, I think.
I go in for that kind of thing, that kind of cheesy thing. So I was a bit of a fan.
The Mighty Ducks Game Changers.
I like the first season of that, but the second season, I think Emilio Estevez revealed himself to be either an anti-vaxxer or anti-mask during a production that was, you know, and they suddenly very hastily get rid of him. Like, oh, what happened to Emilio Estevez? Oh, he can't coach us this year. Whoops. Like, yeah, throw out all that character development.
This is one that gets my goat a bit. The World According to Jeff Goldblum, which I really like.
Oh, that's a shame. I really like that.
And again, you'd thought it got like 2 or 3 seasons. You wouldn't have thought that's...
And it was one of their first mainstay shows. In fact, on Amazon Prime, when you click Disney Plus, it has a little... logo with a few...
Jeff Goldblum's
Jeff Goldblum is one of the faces.
Well, he might be gone. And yeah, they couldn't get rid of shite like... what's the fucking Jeremy Renner?
Oh, yeah, Renovations.
Renovations.
The most narcissistic wank I've ever seen. Jeremy Renner, he's such a great guy. Produced by Jeremy Renner. Isn't it great how Jeremy Renner is such a lovely guy? I know he's better than Jesus.
Another one that I'm quite sad of because I really enjoyed it, Little Demons, which is
I didn't see that.
Aubrey Plaza and Danny DeVito.
Okay.
About them. Danny DeVito's the devil and has a daughter with Aubrey Plaza, who's a mother, and then the daughter realizes on like her 13th birthday that she's the daughter of the devil.
That sounds interesting.
It's good. It's really good actually. So yeah, there's some big things in there and things that annoy me that are going. But what annoys me about this again is, and this is a big problem, and it's a wider problem with streaming in general, is there's just no way to get these things once they've disappeared off of it again.
There's no physical media, and there's no way that they can kind of go to other streaming services.
No, because they're written off. Like if they go to another streaming service, even if they sell it for like 50p, then they have to then. It's not a tax write-off anymore.
It's not worth it as far as they're concerned.
So it's just, and why would you give stuff to your competition as well? Which again is really, it's almost like the days like in olden times when people thought, well, once we've shown this episode of Doctor Who once, no one's ever going to watch it again. And that tape is really expensive, so we might as well tape over it. It almost feels like that again now. It's like...
Very studio system as well from the 1930s where they locked people into contracts with this studio and no one else.
Yeah. But literally, with some of some of the stories that were coming out, is they almost have to go and destroy the hard drives and stuff with them on. Like they have to just like scorched earth because they can't be. Because if you write off, so say you're a video game company and you've made 1 million copies of a video game, E.T., and you only sold 7 copies of E.T., and you then have to go and write it off and put them in a dump somewhere, because otherwise they could say, wow, you can get this tax write-off and then you could sell them in 3 years' time. And that's what taxmen sound like.
Yes, they all sound like 1950s grifters.
Exactly. See? Anyway, that's my old man renting at the Sky over.
It's very sad, though.
It is very sad and fucking annoying.
It is, yeah.
And it makes me, for all the wonders of streaming, and I was talking about how annoying watching like linear TV was to someone the other day, this is one area that's really annoying, as is getting old content. Like the other week when we did Down With Love and Ray Lane, we wanted to go a bit left field. We wanted to do a Wong Kar-wai film. The fuck can you find any Wong Kar-wai films online, or even get hold of the DVDs now? So where am I supposed to watch my Wong Kar-wai films if I don't want a torrent?
Any classic movie, like Turner Classic Movies, I think that's the only streaming service for them. And if you don't have that, you can't watch anything black and white, anything made in the 40s or 50s. Just forget about it. It's not going to happen. They're not interested.
No, and that's it. And yes, there is a rise in kind of niche stuff, niche services that maybe have 500,000 subscribers and like TCM or...
but it's just another service.
It's just another service. Like I've got like 6.
Yeah, exactly.
To make this bloody podcast. Anyway, so that's really annoying, and they can go fuck themselves.
They can.
Anyway, Callum, what is your first piece?
Unfortunately, a bit of a sad one as well. Ex-NFL legend turned movie star Jim Brown has died. And you recognise him from Mars Attacks, from The Dirty Dozen. He appeared in several Spike Lee films. He was in Any Given Sunday. He was cast a lot in movies about football, which, makes sense.
I liked him in Tube Brothers. I liked him in Mars Attacks, actually.
He's
I've got a
very
soft
good
spot for that film.
in Mars Attacks. And considering what we're going to be reviewing today, I think he was one of the inspirations for one of the characters in one of the movies we're going to be reviewing today. And considering that it's about someone in football and in film, I thought it had a nice thematic link, considering what we're going to be talking about. So that's a sad one, but quite a short one. So that is a very sad. He'll be very missed.
Onto something less sad, and see if you can get what piece of news it is from what I'm about to do. Bow, 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 bow,
I
bow,
believe
bow,
in
bow,
miracles.
bow,
I can't sing anymore, or we'll get sued.
We'll get sued. What did you from that? Do you think my piece of news is
Monty Python TV show?
Monty Python?
Monty Python. I meant
the Full Monty.
The Full Monty. Sorry,
the Full Monty TV show with most of the original cast.
I think only one isn't in it because of some unfortunate Me Too-ish kind of
Tom
area
Wilkinson
stuff.
in it though? Because I didn't see him in the trailer.
I think he is, but he might be a case of guest star Tom Wilkinson.
It's a bit so interesting enough. It kind of reminded me of Train Spotting 2, where it's like, where are the boys now? Have they sorted their lives out? Are they an alcoholic? Are they da-da-da-da? And it's a bit like that as a TV series, and it has the kind of obligatory, well, the main character has a daughter now and she's all grown up, etc. But it looks fun. I like those characters. It's still using Sheffield as a really, interesting background.
Expect Disney to delete it in a year.
Yeah, probably. So watch it quick because it is on Disney. But no, that's exciting news as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it looks fun. My second piece of news is, of course, it's the Cannes Film Festival at the moment. The opening night film landed with a bit of a meh reviews. I mean, beyond the controversy of the director and the lead star, the French film with Johnny Depp, the reviews were sort of nothing burger. Right now, the premiere of Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon is happening.
Yeah,
and the
which
trailer
looks
just came out. And the trailer looks really good because it's about a murder mystery. It's a real life murder mystery about the murder of some native people. I believe I can't remember what state it's in now. Oklahoma, in Oklahoma, and the trial that then happened beyond that. And I imagine it will mix horror and real life biopic. And I think Martin Scorsese he's an underrated as a horror filmmaker because you think of something like Shutter Island or Cape Fear.
I like Shutter Island.
He's a solid, dependable filmmaker when it comes to horror, and he should do it more. And it's happening right now, so the reviews probably won't land until tomorrow. But I'm excited for that one.
I think it's going to Netflix. If I'm right.
No, it's Apple.
Apple, okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited, actually. I think it is... I really did not like... what was the last one?
Irishman?
The Irishman. I thought it was too much crappy CGI, too long, too all over the place. And I think that this is... I quite actually like it when Martin Scorsese does more kind of like...
something a bit more left field, but beyond his usual scope.
And also maybe a bit simpler. Like Shutter Island's not that long and a bit tighter. I think sometimes...
this is going to be long.
Is it?
I've heard it's about the same length as The Irishman.
Oh, maybe I will park my... I think The Irishman should have been made into a 3-part series.
I think
so
I think
too. Maybe this sounds like maybe it should have... And that would be more interesting. And it's interesting because Scorsese hasn't really done a series since Boardwalk Empire, which he was only probably involved in for the first 2 episodes.
I think so.
Buggered off with a big paycheck. But yeah. Interesting. So, I think that wraps up
I think
the
it does.
news.
That's the news done.
And we're going to talk about some movies, I suppose.
We are indeed in those 2 movies. It's going to be around sports to some extent, but not the playing of it, the backroom negotiations. One of them is one of these newfangled product movies, which are all the rage down in mid-budget land. Pretty much the only mid-budget films that get made these days. And the next one is a bit of a classic, I guess, and well, won some awards, but we'll see what people think. And so
By people, you mean you and me. Fuck what anyone else thinks.
So that's Air, and the next one is Jerry Maguire. So we'll kick off with Air. Who wants to take the synopsis?
Go on, I'll do it, 'cause I think I did the old one last week. So, there's a guy, and he's looking for another guy, and that guy is going to be some form of basketball player. And he wants to find the next big thing to get his new company that no one's ever heard of, Nike. Or Nike. Is it Nike or Nike?
I think it's Nike.
Whichever one. He wants to get them on the world stage. And at that time, there's the big rival, Adidas or Adidas.
My Adidas.
Yeah. Were really cool. And they were going to get the next hot shot, which was Michael Jordan. But will they? But will they manage to get it? Or will someone else swoop in first, like Nike, and win the day? And Callum, your phone needs to stop dinging.
It's not mine.
Yeah, it is.
You're such a son of a gun. So I thought this movie was quite good. I think...
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Ben Affleck it's an interesting point in his directorial career, because I think when any actor turned director turns to directing, their first few films are going to be those films like, I really wish I could make that movie, but nobody's making that movie. Well, why don't I do it? And so, like, his first few films had aspirations of awards or being a star vehicle for the actor-director, like The Town, or they were based on books that was really important, like Gone Baby Gone, to the director. But once that actor-director realizes that the bug hasn't been shaken, like they still want to be an actor-director, this is kind of what movie they make. It's a solid, dependable, comfy chair of a movie. It's often the case that actor directors are very workmanlike, and in this instance, the actor director is Ben Affleck, and he directs much in the same way as Clint Eastwood or Ron Howard. He puts together a very dependable, solid piece of work, and with excellent technicals, almost invisible editing except for a few moments of flash, and frankly a fairly unremarkable story. I did find the first 15 minutes, I found myself saying, oh my God, who cares? But after, I got into the comfortableness of the film, and it is a comfy chair of a movie, and likable actors. Like the lead is Matt Damon. He's the buyer who kind of goes from place to place trying to court hotshot young stars.
Not a buyer. He's like a talent scout, effectively.
And you got Jason Bateman in there, you got Ben Affleck himself, and you got several other people that you like from various places. Chris Tucker is one. Marlon Wayne's surprisingly good in a very small role. And there's really nothing remarkable about the film except for the point when he tries to go and court Michael Jordan's family, and his mother is played by Viola Davis. And suddenly the film goes from being tepid but solid to rising a bit in temperature, and suddenly the spice that you need has come in, and the spark. Jason Bateman, I think, is the best of the tepid crew, but he's in service of a film that's about a bunch of fairly rich people trying to court a sports star, and it's fine, it's dependable, it's very solid, and occasionally it spikes up into more so.
He's also very much just playing Jason Bateman.
Yes, he is.
Sure, yeah. He's basically Marty out of
But then again,
Ozarks.
Matt Damon is playing Matt Damon. I think Ben Affleck is having fun playing someone who's
a little bit different.
A little bit different, and he's at the stage in his career when he doesn't need a star vehicle, and he doesn't need to be showy. He doesn't need to kind of try and make himself look better than he is. So he gets to play a fun, wiggy cameo with a kind of bad costumes and obnoxious dialogue. So he's having fun. But it rarely rises above tepid, and that's fine. For what it is, it's doing exactly what it should do, and its technicals are commendable for how invisible they are, and I always like that. Especially how the 1980s isn't over-depicted as being big hair and synth, and you just see a bunch of kind of really naff cars or a bunch of really naff suits, and otherwise, it's fine.
Naff sunglasses.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's solid, and I think, given the point in Ben Affleck's career that he's in, this is probably what the majority of his output, except when he occasionally wants to win an Oscar, wants a star vehicle, is going to look like. Solid, dependable chairs, comfy chairs of movies.
I must think, because obviously I think this is maybe, is it his fourth or his fifth?
This is fifth.
Fifth. And the last one was that one with him, it was like a
Live by Night.
40s gangster movie.
Yeah, and that was a
white
complete
flop and not meant to be very good. And I wonder if this is him kind of going, right, let's prove I can be a Ron Howard.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very Ron Howard. It's very kind of, he was given a script. The script's okay. It doesn't blow anyone out of the water. He's got a bunch of probably his mates to come and act in it, and they all do a solid job. With Viola Davis being maybe the slightly the best thing in it. Good sets, well put together, well edited. You can't really fault it from a technical point, like you say, like a technical point of view.
It's perfect.
It's just done.
It really is
well.
invisible,
and it shows him as a really good director. And if someone can give him an Oscar-worthy script, he will win an Oscar, which I suppose he proved with Argo, but I don't think Argo is an Oscar-worthy script, but that's another story for another day. But I think it's it shows him back on form. I think it's infinitely watchable. I think it's, I quite like this kind of movie. I like Moneyball, and I like, I like these kinds of...
Tetris even the other day.
Exactly, yeah, it's very Tetris. Ago. I'm quite excited for Blackberry. I think that looks quite fun. I quite like this kind of movie. I'm a bit of a businessy person as well. I like kind of business stuff. And it's kind of it merges a bit of business, a bit of biopic, a bit of sport. So you've got a bit of everything in there, a bit of history. But yeah, it's tepid. The script is a 3 out of 5. But I think the direction's better than a 3 out of 5. The direction's a 4.5 out of 5.
The production is absolutely... So, I mean, Ben Affleck has proved his mettle in the same way that Clint Eastwood or Ron Howard can really cobble together that kind of filmmaking that, well, like I said, invisible is sort of the word of the day. You really don't notice it, with one exception. And I want to know your opinion because this has divided people. You never see Michael Jordan. And the reasoning behind that, according to interviews, was that they saw him as such a kind of otherworldly, ethereal...
Take you out of it.
Take you out of the film to see some actor. So you always see it from the back of his head, or you'll see someone look to the left and say, "What do you think, Michael?" And
I don't think, does he even speak? Shot. He just grunts, doesn't he?
Grunts until the end when they say, "Michael?" And
but again, you don't see it. Yeah,
I thought that was a bad decision. I was taken out of it by the fact that it's like you only see the back of his head. It reminded me of in religious education classes in school, wherever you watched movies about Muhammad, and of course, you can't depict the prophet. So they would always have some cameraman nodding from the point of view, and that way it was a way to get around it. And it was just awkward. It was the one bit that wasn't invisible, and it had a very big "look at me" sign inadvertently, but a big sign was hung around the neck of this thing. It's albatross around this film's neck, I thought.
See, I probably come from the other point of view. I actually think it works because I think who would you get to play Michael Jordan, and B, it would be such a tiny role because actually maybe it's completely factually inaccurate, but from the way the film came across, he had very little to do with it, other than that he wanted Adidas because they were the cool kids.
Exactly, and that's the thing. They could have just not had him in there and said, "Oh, Michael's, he's trusted the business to me. The mum can do it."
But I don't think that was real. I think the reality is he was in those meetings, but he was like a silent partner. So that's where I think it works. I think you could see because they could have gone down the route of getting some actor and then digitally trying to make him look like Michael Jordan. That would have been even more cringe. It's a hard one. And if it was a film about Michael Jordan, then obviously you need to have an actor playing it. But it wasn't. It was a film about Nike selling a shoe to Michael Jordan, or selling a range of shoes to Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan making billions and billions and billions of dollars out of those shoes.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I don't mind it. I don't think I see how else they would have done it. But I get what you mean. It did make me think, oh, they're not showing Mark, because I didn't know this before I watched the film. They're purposely not showing MJ. They're purposely not showing MJ. Not Mary Jane from Spider-Man. In case that wasn't clear.
There was kind of no way that they had to do something that was, if not this, then something else. I mean, they were painting it into a corner just by how famous Michael Jordan is. So there was no decision they could have made here that wouldn't have split people, I think.
Because he must be like up there with, say, Tiger Woods and...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's one of the greats.
One of the few kind of 3 or 4 sportsmen that,
that everybody in the world knows. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it is hard. It is hard. And like I say, it'd be different if it was a movie about MJ, but it's not, so... yeah, there's a lot of famous people called MJ. Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan.
Good observation.
And Mary Jane from Spider-Man.
That's 3. Person. Well, that's 2 technically.
Well, if you say so. Anyway, I think that probably wraps up our review of that.
Yes, I think so. I think that's the thing with these movies where they are solid. There's not really a great deal to say other than it's all right.
Well, a
bit better than all right.
Anywho,
so on to the second piece. But before that, we got some notes from some sponsors.
I'd buy that for $1.
Nice.
I
haven't actually said that in about a month now.
I know. So I
was getting a bit tired of being called out on it. So, but now it's become like a catchphrase. To what, like
to RoboCop? Yeah.
Well,
not to RoboCop.
No, to the advert that's constantly played in RoboCop, and which they awkwardly put in. Have you seen the remake?
No, I haven't.
At one point, then they've cobbled together the new RoboCop, and Jay Baruchel's character says, "Wow, that's really cool. I'd buy that for $1." And it's like, oh
no,
slipping that in.
It's like when they did the Alien versus Predator, and there's a scene where one of the characters just goes, "Everybody, get to the chopper!"
Yeah,
and it's like,
Arnold Schwarzenegger's entire back half of his career is having films where people awkwardly slip in, "Get to the chopper." And stuff. The Expendables movies are basically all "Get to the chopper" 15 times. But, he's making money, so who cares?
Actually, that's something that's coming out soon that I'm interested in. Netflix is doing a big documentary about Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh,
which
yes,
looks
they
quite
are.
good. It's coming out early June.
It must
I saw a trailer
coincide
of that.
with, he's got a TV show on Netflix as well coming out soon, I think.
Or maybe it is a TV show, not a film.
Well,
though.
it might. I think there is both.
Oh.
So I think they must be doing one to cash in on the other.
It'd be interesting because he's had an interesting life, that man.
He has.
Anyway, on to
the next film.
Which Callum, you are going to take away and tell us about.
Yes. So Jerry Maguire, written and directed by Cameron Crowe in 1996. It was sort of the big film. He'd had some films which they'd been successful, like Say Anything and things like that. But this was his big steamroll into
Some would
Hollywood.
say his Jerry Maguire moment.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's semi-autobiographical in that way, where he just switches out filmmaker for sports agent. But yes, Tom Cruise plays Jerry Maguire, a sports agent who, in the middle of the night, one night, just has a massive panic attack. He's a great sports agent. He knows the formula for getting. He has this monologue at the start about, I know how to pick people who are going to be destined for greatness. But he has this massive panic attack, and so in the middle of the night, he writes this manifesto, and in the morning in his agency, he prints it. He's printed out like 200 copies, and he puts one in everybody's pigeonhole, and everybody thinks this guy's gone off his rocker. He's lost it, and so his boss, played by Jay Moore, fires him, and suddenly there's a sparring match between the two where they have to scrabble to get as many agents. So Jay Moore is trying to poach all of Jerry Maguire's clients, and Jerry Maguire at that time is only able to retain two. Like, he has this one played by Jerry something else, actually. Jerry O'Connell, who's like the big dream football player. Everybody wants this guy. And the one who's a bit more of a left field choice, played by Cuba Gooding Jr. in his breakout role as well, Rod Tidwell. And eventually he even loses Jerry O'Connell's character. And so he decides, look, I'm going to go out on my own. I've got this one client, and who's with me? No one comes, except for the kind of lowly desk worker, played by Renee Zellweger, Dorothy Boyd. And from that, two dual relationships are starting to grow. Firstly, his friendship with Rod Tidwell, this football player who is got a huge chip on his shoulder and is flinty. He has a loving home life and family life, but on the football field, he is just completely in his head and angry and kind of can't get out of his own way. And a budding romantic relationship with his one and only employee in his new agency, this Dorothy character, and a relationship with her son as well. So, Johnny, what did you think of Jerry Maguire?
Not as good as I remember.
Funny, I'm kind of the opposite.
Oh, interesting.
So it's going to get interesting.
I remember really, really liking it, and I haven't probably seen it for like 7-8 years. And I think it's aged really poorly. I think it has some of the worst excesses of Cameron Crowe in that it's like so much schmaltz. It's just schmaltz out of every fucking orifice.
It is sugary.
And I like a bit of spice with my sugar, and I just don't think there's enough spice in it. I really like Cuba Gooding Jr., and I really like his character, and I like Jerry's relationship with him. I just don't at all buy the relationship with Renee Zellweger. I just don't buy it, and I think I did before. I think Tom Cruise is good. He's acting his heart out, although he does do the creepy smile thing a bit too much.
He is very reptilian.
Particularly with the kid. And I find the kid annoying.
Oh, Jonathan Lipnicki. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember him?
I think he's a bit annoying. So I don't understand. Like, it's a good film. It's well written. If you haven't seen it before, I'd go watch it. But it didn't hang together to me like I thought it did before. And I think it feels like very 90s. I think if you made that film today, it'd have to have a bit more spice to it. And I think that's what I want from a film. And even the music was a bit 90s and things. Like, Almost Famous has got a bit more vinegar in its veins than
I suppose
this
because
has.
that's a biographical tale about his childhood.
Yeah, exactly, which is more interesting. This is a bit more And yeah,
almost wish fulfillment. Like, you can swap Cameron Crowe for Jerry Maguire, and it's kind of they're both kind of rising at a similar pace, but one is kind of like, I wish I was this cool.
yeah. And I think that's it. And I think I just don't. And also, so much happens in such a short space of time because it happens over one football season.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is like, again, I don't want to give too much away, but basically, he manages to get married and then near enough divorce in a year. It just seems all a bit weird. Like, the pacing's weird. I think I really enjoy the story of Jerry Maguire being Jerry Maguire, and I just don't buy the love interest. I'm not the biggest Renee Zellweger fan. I never have been. And I think in this, I'm not her. I like her sister a lot more. I think I find her a little bit annoying in this. Yeah.
Funnily enough, I don't actually disagree with anything you said. And I can actually add one on top of that. That it is creepy that the romantic relationship is with an employee when he's the boss.
I thought that, which is mentioned a couple of times, but it's like just mentioning it doesn't make it okay.
Off.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, maybe because I like that sort of knotty Cameron Crowe over talking sort of thing. He writes screenplays in a way where everybody talks like an American screenwriter, but
it's quite Aaron Sorkin.
It's very quite Aaron Sorkin,
Schmaltz,
Kevin Smith. They all kind of have good writers have this flaw where everybody talks. Problem is, I kind of am a sucker for that kind of thing. I sort of like that thing on a metatextual level where it's not the film that's winning me over. It's more like, oh, look at that. Look at how he wrote that scene. Oh, look at that. And I found myself a lot of times really enjoying the way that he would write a scene. Like, it's fairly simple stuff. Like, he's falling in love, he's making a friend. But I liked sort of the over-divulged dialogue.
Yeah.
Over-explaining
to each other. Like, every conscious thought they have that has to come out of their mouths.
Something about that. And I think the magic he found here that he tried again with Aloha about 15 years later. Did you see Aloha? Yeah, but it's similar. Aloha and this are similarly structured.
It's about 20 years later.
Possibly. And they're very similarly structured films. They're both about like a very obnoxious guy, and there's a romantic relationship. There's a workplace comedy. There's a this, there's a that, there's the other. I think with this film, it just, for one reason or another, it just sort of worked for me. I didn't find that the balance was too off, except I actually agree that the romantic relationship was less convincing. But the workplace comedy and the first half of the romantic relationship works enough for me. But the second half, basically once they got married, that it stopped working for me pretty cold. But even then, it's not losing me, and it should. And I know these things are flaws. His biggest influence for this film is both the films of Billy Wilder, but especially The Apartment, which is another film where it's not quite a romantic comedy, it's not quite a workplace comedy, it's not quite a this film, it's not quite a that film. It's 4 films, but usually we complain about that kind of thing. We'll say, bloody hell, it's 4 films at once. But in this time, I found myself thinking, yeah, it's 4 pretty good movies that I'm enjoying watching in tandem. The other one is Broadcast News, because James L. Brooks is a producer on this film. Of course, it's not nearly as good as either of those, but I can see some of the spark that's similar to Billy Wilder and James L. Brooks present here. It's not quite as big. I like Tom Cruise. I think the reptilian superficial charm thing works here because he's playing a character who is absolutely superficially charming and slimy. Cuba Gooding Jr. is a light bulb in a dark room. He's so charming.
He really is.
He's not my favourite Oscar nominee of that year because 96 was a competitive year with Edward Norton and William H. Macy in Fargo. I would have gone for either of those two over him. But, I'm not happy about his win. If they had to go for the wrong choice, make it be him.
Yeah, at least it's fun and flashy.
Exactly.
And silly, not like annoying or pious or pretentious.
Exactly. It's very flashy, but it's very fun to watch as well. And you are biting your nails when something happens in the last act involving football and possibly, if only that was the very end of the film. But then, of course, they had to wrap up the romantic relationship, and that's where you had me at hello, and And you can
Which is a good line.
It is a good line. And you can see there, again, Billy Wilder, the ghost of Billy Wilder, because he's trying to get a line as good as shut up and deal or nobody's perfect. You know, Billy Wilder was very good at writing final lines, and he's really, and you could see, again, metatextually enjoying the movie rather than enjoying the movie. You can hear Cameron Crowe going, I need a good final line. I need a line. And I kind of like seeing the fingerprints there of him. And so I kind of liked the film despite itself in a lot of ways. Because of the, you can see the presence of Cameron Crowe working his magic, I guess.
I think that's the thing. I think actually it's very of its time, so it's very 90s, but it is like one of those 90s scripts that's very well done, very well put together. But because it's so well put together, you can almost see the cogs. It's not going back to what we were talking about with Air, although not so much from a writing point of view, but Air felt very seamless and very smooth. And I almost feel like you can feel this film shift gears, like, right.
Oh, there's nothing invisible here.
Now we're in Sporting Agent. Now we're in love romantic comedy. Yeah. Now we're going to prove to you that this is a nice guy because he's nice to a kid. And now he's going to win over the sister. Literally, you can feel it literally changing up and going, right, now we need this piece of the puzzle. And it's a nice, when you look at it, it's a nice puzzle.
It's a nice puzzle, but you can always see the seams.
Yeah, and again, that kind of, and they're not, and I could forgive that if I was like, I really am enamored by. But the problem is that I only want to watch about half of the pieces.
And I think I have to put my hat forward that I am a screenwriting nerd. I do so in my casual time. I've written some short films and I read screenplays in my spare time sometimes when I'm bored. So when I see a screenplay being a screenplay on the screen with the pages literally being flicked over, I go, oh, cool, I like this. But I know it shouldn't happen objectively. I know I shouldn't be seeing the pages being flicked over. But as a nerd of that thing, I find myself going, oh, good. This is a Callum film.
It's almost the same problem I have with some Chris Nolan films, though the dialogue is better than a Chris Nolan dialogue. I'll give it that much.
Yes.
But you can go like, right, now we insert the set piece.
Yes, very much
like
so.
This. Now we insert the child into the love story.
Lego blocks being placed down. Piece by piece.
So yeah. Anyway, any more to say on that?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it for me.
Well, I think that means it's time to wrap up this episode of our podcast. And Callum, what did you think of Air?
I think you summed it up quite well. It's a 6 out of 10 script with 8 out of 10 production. It's very solidly put together. It's only one bit distracted me. But otherwise, it's seamless and it's invisible. It's kind of, if you want to learn how to make a film that isn't all flash and no trousers, and watch a film that is no flash and no trousers, but still kind of entertaining, this is a pretty good one. So I think 7 overall.
Yeah, well, I was thinking exactly the same number. I think it's enjoyable enough for script, really well put together, and it's like watching a load of actors I quite like. So yeah, really nice and watchable, but nothing to be like, wow. About. And Callum, that also brings us to Jerry Maguire. What do you think of Jerry Maguire?
Clunky, clearly not invisible, but unfortunately for sort of a nerd of this kind of thing, and it's visible in all the ways that I like it being visible. In the same way I like an early Kevin Smith script before he went not Kevin Smithy anymore. And because of that, 8 out of 10, because I like seeing the pieces of the puzzle being put down, but I know that shouldn't be happening.
I like Cuba Gooding Jr. I think people that like Schmaltzy would like it, so I have to take that into account. I think everyone else is serviceable. Actually, no, Tom Cruise is above serviceable, but everyone else is serviceable. And it is, there are some good lines that have me at hello. It is fairly well put together, but in the process, you can see the panel gaps between the bits of story. So I'm going to give it a 7 as well. I think it's almost similar. It's almost like a reverse. It's a better script, but not as well directed, whereas the other way around. So yeah, I think a 7 out of 10. So,
I think that's fair.
That means this week we are giving Air a 7 out of 10, and we are giving Jerry Maguire a 7.5 out of 10. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening again this week. Don't forget to find us on our social medias, which are
Untitled Film Podcast on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube.
And don't forget to go and answer our questions, comment, like, subscribe, do all these things. It always helps us out. And just to say thank you very much for listening, and bye.
And show me the money. Show me the money.